We've spent the last 8 months traveling 3 of the top digital nomad cities, Bangkok, Thailand, Da Nang, Vietnam, and Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, and we're gonna give you our honest feedback about these 3. All 3 cities are incredible. They have their own pros and cons. We're gonna be going back to all 3 of those eventually, but let's start with the cost of living.
I think what makes all 3 of these places really stand out is the affordability and the cost of living in these places, because you can stay some really nice places for a very affordable price. First up, we're looking at Bangkok, Thailand. We found a luxury apartment that we stayed at every single time we've been for about $800 a month. We were right in the middle of the city, right by the Siam Paragon Mall, so we were definitely paying a little bit of a premium to be so city center, but that was totally worth it for us just because Bangkok's traffic is insane, and that way we didn't have to deal with it on a day-to-day basis.
We have a full video on just that place, so if you want to watch that, check it out. But one of the things that's with Bangkok is that you can't do short-term Airbnbs less than 30 days. So if we were staying less than 30 days, we'd have to stay in like a hotel or something. And that makes a lot of sense to keep people from coming in and out of these residential areas. But since we did stay for a month, we were able to use Airbnb. And the price that we got for this, we thought was really good, because you can't expect to get these really low rates just for a 1-month stay. What we've come to learn is that if you want a good rate, that's when you're staying maybe for a year, you're signing a lease, maybe you're contacting an owner directly. But contacting an owner directly is not as easy as it seems, and that really opens you up to scams. So for us, we just went the Airbnb route.
And we did try to go a few different routes other than Airbnb in Bangkok. Like I did reach out to some like real estate agents who do rentals for apartment complexes. And the shortest amount that we could stay would be 6 months to a year. So it is really, really difficult to find true short-term housing opportunities in Bangkok. Airbnb is probably gonna be your best bet, or if you know someone where you can like sublet.
And the price we got here was mid-tier. This was our first time going to Bangkok, so we didn't really want to take any risk on where we stayed. It looked pretty good online, and there were definitely some more expensive places. There were some cheaper places, but this kind of fit that price range that we were willing to risk.
Now, Da Nang, Vietnam was probably our cheapest stay that we have ever had. We found a hotel for $500 a month. This included like Wi-Fi, AC, daily cleaning. We had access to a pool, a sauna, and was a couple blocks from the beach. So this was such a good deal for us.
And when we started looking for a place, we found this on booking.com. And when we got to the hotel, they had the reservations, but they didn't take credit card. And I thought this was really interesting. So I actually had to do a wire transfer to pay for this. And like scam bells went off, like, wow, I have to do a wire transfer to pay for a hotel. It ended up being safe, and that's what we paid. But I was really surprised that they didn't accept credit card.
Now, when we came back to Da Nang, we actually directly worked with the hotel and skipped booking.com and got an even better rate. So that's where we got that $500 a month. But Da Nang, it is definitely easier to find shorter term housing. It seems like they're more used to it in Da Nang, and you can get places from Facebook Marketplace or just rent directly from owners or even hotels. It's actually quite common for a lot of digital nomads and expats to just stay in hotels long term. I would say most of our hotel was long-term rentals basically. So that is a little bit easier in Da Nang to find those.
So when we found this place, it wasn't the most expensive, nor was it the cheapest, but it was something that we felt fit our idea of comfort.
So in Kuala Lumpur, we ended up also doing an Airbnb, and it came out to be about $1,000 per month. So this is definitely more on the more expensive side, but I would say we have one of the best views in our room. We see the eco forest, so we see monkeys every day, and we literally have one of the best views of the skyline of Kuala Lumpur. So it's a really, really nice place that we're staying at. Now, it's a little bit more like a hotel rather than a residential property. So if we go over this apartment complex in more detail, but we'll definitely talk about the pros and cons later in a video.
When we've traveled between these places, we were in Bangkok a little over a month at first. We went to Da Nang about a month. We went back to Bangkok. Then we went back to Da Nang. We were there for 3 months that time. So then once we decided to go to Kuala Lumpur, we decided to just bite the bullet and do 3 months in a row. And based on our learnings from Bangkok and Da Nang, we kind of knew what we wanted to stay long term. And just looking online, this looked like it fit the bill. So we ended up going on a little bit more of the pricier side just because we valued the location and some of the amenities. So in terms of housing, this should give you an idea of that mid-tier price range, but we don't stay in hostels. We don't try to go like dirt cheap, and it's not like extreme luxury, but the idea of luxury is going to vary from person to person.
I would say the biggest thing for us is that we do like having a pool, especially in Southeast Asia when the weather is really nice and you can swim most of the year round. So a pool's pretty standard. If we can get a sauna, it's usually like in the city center. So that's kind of usually what we're looking for.
And one of the best things about traveling is food and drink. So it's really nice to get different things in Bangkok, Da Nang, and Kuala Lumpur.
Because I would definitely say it's really fun trying the different cuisines of all of these countries because they are very, very different and they're all really good, but just so different, especially because we're not so far away from each other. So just seeing the differences in cuisine has been really interesting. But the cost is one thing that's also really interesting because it's more affordable to eat out than it is almost to just cook at home.
And a good thing about all three of these countries and cities is that they use Grab. So you can use Grab for food ordering, transportation, things like that. So in terms of food, Bangkok was our absolute favorite. We think Kuala Lumpur is a really close second because there's some amazing food here too, but I think Bangkok beats it out because it has more of that variety.
I would also say Bangkok, in terms of delivery, they have it down pat. Grab is so integrated in the culture. Our apartment complex in Bangkok had an area where you would just pick up Grab. Now it's pretty ingrained here in Kuala Lumpur, but it takes almost double as long, sometimes about an hour for delivery. If it's a weekend, sometimes 2. Bangkok was pretty quick, but I would say Vietnam was the fastest. If we ordered coffee in the morning, it could get here in less than 5 minutes. It was crazy. So we had to make sure we were actually ready to get our coffee once we ordered it. So that's also a little bit of the difference too of just like the speed of Grab.
So we get Thai tea delivered most mornings and it was $2.80 for 2 of those from the mall and just maybe $1 more for delivery. And Thai tea was one of our favorite things. We liked Thai tea before going to Thailand, so obviously we drank Thai tea when we were there. And that might be more of like a touristy thing, but I really enjoy it.
So on average, I would say we would probably spend about $15 a day on food, and this probably even includes our cha cha mute Thai tea. We would get a lot of things like pad kra pao. We get this really big tray with like eggs, the pork and the rice, or we get like whole chicken, like this really fried crispy chicken. I think a lot of the food we actually got delivered was like Michelin bib rated, so we got some really high quality food for such a good cost. Or if we went to the mall, like whenever we would go, they have a really great kind of like food court cafeteria style, and you could easily get a meal for $6 for the both of us. So $3 a meal. And most of these prices are gonna be for both of us together rather than individually. So $15 a day for both of us. Or if we went to the mall, it would maybe be about $6 for like lunch or dinner.
And some people might be concerned about the spice level in Thailand, and what we've learned is that you can choose your spice level. So if you don't really want it spicy, you could choose not spicy, you could choose more spice. And a lot of the spices come on the side and it's more of a spice as you like. So you have the things there to make it really spicy, but just by itself, I wouldn't be worried about getting something just crazy spicy.
And a lot of the food also had other little packets. So some things would make it more like salty or more sour or more spicy. And sometimes even sweet, they would put sugar sometimes. So you can kind of customize the food. I would always try it as is and then add things to it as you like.
But hands down, Bangkok had the best food as far as quality and variety.
And in terms of food safety, I felt like Bangkok was extremely safe. We never got sick. Now I will say our stomachs had some adjusting period. That's just kind of with any new area that you're at. Now that we've been in Asia for about 8 months, I would say we're totally adjusted to the different food here. It is just so different than like a US diet, but it's way fresher. And I definitely feel like we can taste that now as like the freshness of our food. But in terms of food quality, Bangkok was very safe, especially if you went to the mall, especially if you got Grab food delivery with like a ton of reviews. So you just have to be safe in that sense, is if it doesn't have a lot of reviews and you don't want to risk it, it's not worth it. So go to busy places, and that's usually where you're safer.
And in Da Nang, the food was really good. There wasn't as much variety, it was fresh, but the star here was the coffee. There are a bunch of different coffees. There's like salt coffee, Saigon black coffee, egg coffee, all these different coffees that are really good. So we'd spend less than $3 for 2 coffees for both of us, whether we went out or we ordered on Grab. Like it's cheaper just going to the cafe. Like the cafe we went to, I think in Dong, it was 70,000 Dong for 2 of us. And that's not too bad.
So Cree mentioned earlier that Vietnam's food is really fresh, and I just feel like it was so fresh. It's like one of those things that you can't really explain until you've had it. So a lot of the times we would get pho. That was one of our favorite things to get for lunch. It was really affordable. It was really quick. So it was about $6 for the both of us, $3 a piece, but that also included a coconut. We would always get a coconut when we would get our pho, which is like a lot of liquid, but that's just what we liked. So for 2 big bowls of pho and 2 coconuts, it would be $6 total.
We drank a lot of fresh juice too. So if we went to the beach, we might get 2 watermelon juices, 2 pineapple juices. We'd get juice delivered, like we'd get a beet juice that had turmeric, ginger, and celery juice added to it. And all the juices, when we would get 2 of those, would be less than $4. Now, Vietnam's a little bit different. There are a lot of like food stands, things like that. And we tried to follow things that we'd see online, like eat where the locals are, where there's a lot of people and whatnot. We did both end up getting some type of like food illness, and so we stayed really hesitant to try anything else. So we just ordered a lot of Grab for places that we felt were safer.
And especially if we've had it before and we've been fine. But we did get sick at a place that we'd been to actually many times. We were there a lot the first time, a lot the second time, but we got sick there twice. So we did tend to kind of stay away from even eating out and just eating in a lot more and just ordering Grab from the places that we just knew we were fine at eating at.
So a lot of things we would order would be like half chicken, beef skewers, Indian, things like that that we felt comfortable with that were really good.
And this would usually range around like $7 for the both of us to on the high end, $15 for the both of us.
And the 15 would come from a place, Adobo Grill, which is comparable to Chipotle.
I feel like it's safe to say though, when we were in Da Nang, we probably spent about $15 a day total between the both of us on food, but this includes like coffee, whether like a juice or a coconut a day, and lunch and dinner. We don't eat breakfast, so a lunch and dinner, and that would be about $15 is probably what I would budget, but that again is also getting like your coffee out. You can make that at home if you wanted, juice or coconut, which you don't need to get. And we did do delivery, so if you wanted to eat more local, you could totally bring this cost down, but for us, $15 a day for all of this was totally worth it.
Now, we were the most surprised about Kuala Lumpur because the food here is incredible.
It's actually probably some of our favorite now. Like there are a few key dishes that I would say are probably some of my favorite dishes.
Kuala Lumpur is known for nasi lemak, but we found out that we really like nasi kandar. And we like this nasi kandar so much, we almost ranked it higher than the food in Bangkok. And the only reason why Bangkok won was because we feel like there's more variety of food. So if we'd get nasi kandar for both of us with some drinks, that would be $12.61 with delivery.
So while Vietnam had the best coffee and obviously Thai tea in Thailand, what we've been drinking here is tea Tarik. And that's kind of like this like black tea that's like sweetened. It's really good. It's kind of hard to explain, but some mornings we'll try to get that. It's about $6 with delivery. Some places we do like $6 and it comes with like roti or like some toast with like some jelly. And again, that's about $6, but delivery takes forever. And these stores don't typically open till about 7 or 8 a.m. and we're up significantly earlier. So we tend to just make our coffee at home at this point now, just because it takes so long to get delivered. We have to wait versus like Vietnam, things would be open at like 4 or 5 a.m. I don't think Vietnamese ever slept. Like things were just always opened. So that was the difference too, where we would wake up early in Vietnam and could get coffee delivered. Here in Kuala Lumpur, we don't really have that same availability.
We're spending about $11 to $15 for a meal with delivery here because it's a lot more protein heavy and we're getting that for 2 of us. So on top of the Malaysian food, we're actually eating a lot of Middle Eastern food too. And like shawarma, kebabs, and things like that are really fresh and very good. One of our favorite desserts, martabak, is here too. That's actually Indonesian, but it's really good and we get that all the time.
Now a big difference too with Kuala Lumpur is we do have like a small kitchen that we can use. So we are doing a few things like boiled eggs every once in a while. So that's something different versus when we were in Da Nang, we didn't have any type of kitchen because we were in a hotel. In Bangkok, it was almost easier to just order out than not. Like I said, Kuala Lumpur's biggest issue is that delivery takes like an hour, sometimes 2, and depending on like if there's holidays and things, there might not be anything for delivery. So that's like the most surprising, where like Bangkok never had a problem. Vietnam never had a problem either. So that's why we're cooking a little bit more here in Kuala Lumpur as well.
With food safety here, there's no concern.
Now you might be a little surprised at these costs because I do feel like a lot of people on YouTube and on social media, when they talk about how affordable the Southeast Asia region is, a lot of people are showing the lowest cost. And again, that is eating very, very local from food stalls on the street. And if you're willing to kind of risk that, it's not something we are, because we are traveling full time and getting food sickness is really not fun and it can be quite dangerous. So for us, we want to stick to kind of more safe things. So we are eating Grab, we're eating out at certain, maybe like more expensive places. And especially if it's Western, it is going to be way more expensive than like local cuisine that you just kind of pick up on the street. And same with like housing, you can find cheaper accommodations in all of these cities, but it also just depends on like how cheap you want to stay, because we did try to find somewhere cheaper in Bangkok the first time we were there for about $400 a month, but it was covered in mold and it just wasn't safe. So we went and basically paid double, and we had such a better experience. And honestly, the amenities and the experience was so much better paying that higher cost and living in one of the luxury apartment complexes.
Yeah, I think you have a good point there about what you see online, like Da Nang. Maybe you can get like super cheap banh mi's and stuff. And there's some really good ones, but I'm not going to eat a banh mi every day. So we might have grabbed a really cheap banh mi once or twice, but it wasn't like our daily food. Now we can talk about the ease of living. And I want to start this one with Kuala Lumpur because it is the most developed. Everyone speaks English here. Most places are cashless so that you can use credit cards. The roads are clean. There's not a lot of potholes. You can walk. There's sidewalks. It's very developed here.
There's great public transportation that you could take throughout the city, even some free buses. So yeah, it's definitely the most developed of the three countries.
And I'd say this is comparable to going to like a US city that's really clean. I would say like New York, but New York is dirty. So it's not like that, but yeah, it's very clean here. You could use the sidewalks.
Everything you need, you can find here.
Like we've used the pharmacies, there's always someone there to help and get you medicine. It's very affordable. The data works everywhere we go. We actually use Airlo. The link is in the description. So if you're traveling Southeast Asia and need an eSIM, you can use that link to get some discounts in all three of these countries. And since everyone speaks English, it's easier to meet people, talk to your Grab driver, and just get around. And it's nice to do activities too. Like we like to go to the movie theater. There's a lot of movie theater experiences here, like IMAX, you have ScreenX, and then there's a lot of experiences where you have like beds where you can watch a movie. We even watched a movie and we got soft-shell crab, like fried soft-shell crab served to us while we watched the movie.
Now, Bangkok being the biggest city we stayed at, I would say it's really interesting because it's not totally cashless like it is here in Kuala Lumpur. You still need cash, but not as much. For example, like if you were to go to 7-Eleven, things are so cheap at 7-Eleven that there's a minimum spend. And it was actually really hard for us to hit that minimum spend to use a credit card. So we needed cash for that. If you're using like the tuk-tuks, which we didn't really use because it's a little bit more touristy, and that's just not something that we enjoy doing personally, you need a little bit of cash for that. But most of the time, especially if you're going to the malls and using Grab, you can use your credit cards for everything. And obviously the Airbnb, would take credit card too. Now, I would say for the English language that some people speak English, but I would say on the whole, it was a lot more Thai. So at 7-Eleven, they would speak to us in Thai. And even going to the malls, the food court, it was more Thai. You could know basic phrases like, hello, how are you? But English wasn't spoken as commonly as it is in Kuala Lumpur. And in terms of infrastructure, Bangkok is a giant city and it is a little bit more car heavy than scooter heavy. There's just a lot more traffic when you're driving. So that's also why we tried to not drive around too much, and being central was really important for us. That way we could just walk to the mall. But in terms of walkability, you can walk places. It's just not the easiest. There's not as many sidewalks. You're walking on the street and you definitely kind of get looked at a little bit more if you're walking. I think more people either are taking cars, or they're taking a tuk-tuk, a scooter, or they're using public transportation. But Bangkok does also have public transportation that if you did want to use that, it's really easy to use, really safe. We used it once or twice. So you do have that option as well. And since Bangkok is a huge city, you have access to everything you need, all the stores you need, pharmacies. Now the pharmacists do speak English, which is really helpful. I think the only thing that there was a little bit of a translation issue was the antibiotics that I was allergic to, but they just translated it and knew exactly what I was talking about.
And Da Nang is different than these, especially since it's a beach city, but it's not as developed. There's a lot of construction. There's a lot of just open welding. You're walking in the streets because all the sidewalks, you have people that have the motorbikes, they'll pull up and park on the sidewalks. So you might get a little bit of space on the sidewalk. Then you walk in the street. There might be a little bit more trash in the street. There's just a lot going on because they're growing so much in Da Nang.
And they also don't have stoplights, so traffic's just constantly moving. It's like a very different, unique experience. So you just have to kind of cross the street when it's empty.
And then you might see things that you don't want to step on, or it could be something dangerous and rusty on the sidewalk. So you're definitely looking out for your own safety there. And Da Nang is very cash heavy. There are some things that take credit card, like maybe if you use Grab, some of the more modern restaurants, but for the most part, even our hotel didn't even accept credit cards. We had to wire transfer the money. And so you definitely want to carry cash with you. That way, if you need to go and just buy anything, you'll need cash.
I think the only thing that didn't need cash were some of the convenience stores. They typically took credit card too.
But like our cell phone data, that worked no problem. It's kind of an adventure there, but it is developing. You can have a good time as long as you know these things. As far as like speaking English, there are some that speak English, but it's definitely not as widely spoken as even Bangkok. So it's going to be more difficult to get around, and like you're pointing to a lot of stuff and having these interactions. But with that being said, it's a lot easier to interact with locals. I think people are very friendly in Vietnam. So if you're walking around, you're in the street and you're going places, you often like bump into people and chat. And typically when we take our laundry to get done, our laundry lady, she'd always tell us hello, but we couldn't speak any Vietnamese, but it was nice to see someone smile at you and wave every day.
Yeah, it was every day. So it was really nice. So yeah, we definitely interacted with locals the most in Vietnam compared to the other two countries.
And for the visas, we're from the United States, so our experience could be different than yours. But we were able to come to Kuala Lumpur, where we just filled out a form online right beforehand. We didn't have to pay anything, and we could do 90 days since we've arrived. But we did need to have an exit flight already purchased before we got in. Thailand was really similar, and I think last year it was 30 days on arrival, then they changed it to 60 days. So that time, like when we were here, then we left and came back. We ended up doing 60 days that second time, but we didn't have to pay anything. We just showed up, filled out the form, and did 60 days. Vietnam was the unique one. We actually had to apply for the visa ahead of time, and it was $25 per person, and we had no issues filling that out on the government site. And it took about a week to get a result that we were approved, but once we were approved, we showed up and no problem. And we got our visa for 90 days in Vietnam. So it's pretty easy to do 90 days in Kuala Lumpur. It's easy to do 90 days in Vietnam, but then you're gonna get about 60 days in Thailand.
So for our personal decision, we aren't doing any border runs. It's pretty popular to do that in Vietnam. You do your 90 days, you do a quick border run and come back. For us, that doesn't really make sense. We're enjoying going to all these different countries. So, you know, our 3 months in Vietnam and our 2 months in Bangkok and our 3 months here in Kuala Lumpur has been really nice. So just be kind of careful when you do border runs, because I know Thailand is getting very, very strict. A lot of their immigration rules are changing. So just some things like that to keep in mind.
So if we were to talk about cons of these places, I would say Da Nang has the most cons. Like we've already mentioned, the construction, and it's not just that like there's noise from the construction or something, but like with open welding, you go around the corner, somebody's just welding, the person welding is just wearing sunglasses or nothing at all, and you might hurt your eyes. Having construction materials in the streets, the food poisoning risk, some of the trash, it's just more of like an adventure there. No real order with the traffic. It's this like flow that you have to go into. I would say there are more cons in Da Nang than Bangkok or Kuala Lumpur. And for Bangkok, I would say that it's not as walkable and it is just extremely busy and there's a lot of traffic. Another con would be those like small iterations of not accepting credit cards, like having a 200 baht minimum at 7-Eleven. Things like that, it would just be easier if they just took credit card for any price.
And in terms of Vietnam, now you might see this as a pro or a con. Vietnam is really expat heavy or digital nomad heavy. So you're gonna have a lot of opportunities to meet people from all over the world that aren't locals as well. I feel like there are a lot of meetups. Bangkok, I know there are a lot of expats that live in Bangkok. I feel like it was harder to naturally run into any expats. I feel like you'd have to really go out of your way to do that. There definitely are, you know, Americans, Australians, people from the UK living in Bangkok, but you're not gonna naturally run into them the way that you will in Da Nang. Like we could go to a coffee shop and just talk to like an expat there just easily, but you don't have that same experience in Bangkok.
Another con of Bangkok is that it's a little bit more touristy. And I feel like you're kind of pushed to go to these tourist things in almost a way that sets you up to possibly being scammed. Like we had this one interaction with someone, we're walking around and they come off as friendly and then try to say, hey, have you seen these tourist attractions? I can call this tuk-tuk, and this guy like shows up and he's like, oh, get this, and like go off, and you're like, hey, I'm not just like...
We didn't have cash, so...
Yeah, we didn't have cash to even like jump in and do this. So just quick to jump in and just go and do this thing that we didn't plan for. It's not something that I would do, and we've seen some horror stories online, and it's not like it was dangerous or anything, but maybe they would be charged higher than they normally would if they did it on their own.
So I say with Kuala Lumpur, there's probably the least amount of cons, but some of the cons I think are pretty big cons. So the biggest con about Kuala Lumpur is the price. It is the most expensive out of all of these, but really at the end of the day, it's still so much more affordable, and there are ways to make it less expensive. We're just having a fun time trying everything, and we typically notice like the first month that we go to any new country, our expenses are a lot higher. I will say like massages are more expensive, so we're skipping out on that, versus like Bangkok and Vietnam, we would do that once a week. But again, the food is so good and it is more protein heavy. So even though the food's more expensive, we are getting a lot more for it. Where like Vietnam, it's not a lot of protein. So that's why things are a lot cheaper. And I think another really big con for us is just the Grab integration. I don't know if they don't have enough drivers. We've been playing around with some other apps like Food Panda, and that is a little faster, but not really. And we are here around 2 major holidays. So we were here for Lunar New Year, and now we're here during the Ramadan season. So I just don't know if it has to do something with the holidays and the time of year that we came, but everything takes about an hour, sometimes 2. So that morning coffee that we could do in like Vietnam or the Thai tea in Bangkok isn't really a thing here. So that's a little bit of a con just for us, because that is part of the lifestyle that we like, that we do just get everything delivered. But when it takes so long, it's just easier for us to like make some eggs here and do that. It does save us some money, so that's kind of a pro, that we're saving a little bit of money since the food is a little bit more expensive. But I'd rather just get Grab all the time because it's easier in my opinion. And I would also say another con is like the apartment complex that we're at here. It's a little bit more of a hotel, and I'd rather stay somewhere that's more residential, just because we have so many noisy neighbors and the turnaround rate is really, really high. So like every day we're getting someone different, and they don't really care that we're here trying to live our life and work all the time. So that's a bit of a con, but we have a really good view, which is a pro. So Kuala Lumpur has been an interesting one because we came here sight unseen, and that's the first time we've ever done that, staying for so long, versus like Bangkok, we went there for a month, then came back for 2 months. Same with Da Nang, we were there for a month, then came back for 3 months. So maybe we do things differently the next time we come.
Out of the 3, Bangkok wins for the food quality, Kuala Lumpur wins for modern and quality of life, and Da Nang wins for beach life and luxury adventure.
Yeah, for me, I would say like the Bangkok apartments are next level. So any of those like YouTube tours of like luxury Bangkok apartments, you can stay there and they are such a cool experience. Definitely Kuala Lumpur. It is a really cool city. So many malls, so many things to do, a lot of culture and like different people that you can interact with, and everyone knowing English really makes a big difference. But for me, Vietnam, it is just like a very luxury experience, like getting coffee delivered every day, massages, going to the beach. But again, it has a lot of cons too, that it's a little hard to overlook sometimes, because we did end up getting sick. I got sick quite often the last time we were in Vietnam. So again, pros and cons of everything, but I can't wait to go back to all 3 of these countries.
If you've been to any of these cities, tell us in the comments how your experience was. Or if you're planning to go, let us know which city you want to go to. See you in the next video.